I would if I did a show where I analyze and solve PR kerfuffles from MMA Word and beyond.
Yeah. Some guy, what I love about that is that there's some guys who the second they hear that, it's like a dog whistle, they're out. They can't take it.
Yeah.
It's like being in prison. You're so fucking touchy, you just can't take it.
For some people, it's the word kerfuffle. It's like, oh, God, ugh.
I'm done. I'm out. So why would you even come in if you're going to be that touchy? Man, oh, man.
They should just hate watch.
Yeah,
I'm your host, Lexi Old. Joining me as always is Kid Native Bloody Elbow and Eugene S. Robinson from Aussie.com and author of Fight Everything I Want to Know What Ass Kicking. We're afraid you get your ass kicked for asking.
Perfect.
And collectively, we are the MMA punch holes.
Pancholes.
Pancholes.
Yeah.
For all y'all puncholos and puncholas out there.
Man, we're big in South America. You know, they love us down
si,
under.
Si, senor.
Si, senor.
Eugene, you're WME-IMG.
Oh, man.
You were forced to cancel UFC 213 main event hours before it began because your UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion, Amanda Nunes, didn't feel right to fight, despite being medically cleared to compete, allegedly. How should you handle the fallout from this modern-day MMA Onin who, when faced with doubt, pulled out?
That's good, man. I don't know why you're not a star. That shit's deep. I love that. You went to the
like
Onin for was you cross cut. Well, look, look. This is tough, and it's if the rest of the commentators haven't realized that it's a minefield, they need to, unless they're making their lives with men, they need to really know that this is a minefield. I mean, the U.S. military realized at a certain point, and I've got guys in the military who call bullshit on this. I'm not sure. I read it. I believe it. That they had to change basic training, not in terms of the physical requirements when more women were involved, but because they were shutting down, you know, all that abusive, not even borderline, just straight up abusive shit that drill sergeants used to do wasn't working, wasn't motivating the women in the same way that it was motivating men who were, you know, is in some way used to the abuse. So they changed. Physical requirements still the same, but the guys are not just trying to psychologically tear you to pieces in the same way. They're still doing stuff. They're still rough, but it's not the same as it was, right? Like, you want a taste of how it was. I hate to go back to cinematic references. Try Full Metal Jacket.
Yes.
However, you know, when Dana said, there'll never be women's MMA, you know, he was looking at dollars and cents. Realistically speaking, you know, my wife goes to the doctor. Literally, things have to be hanging out of my body or like discoloring before I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm just not going to go. I'm just not going to do it. Now, one of the commenters said, I get super bad migraines. I don't know if you've ever had sinusitis, but it's terrible. The idea of taking a punch to the head when you have something like this is just crazy. You cannot do it. Don't know. I know a lot of guys, if they were headlining in Las Vegas, would have dragged their asses into that cage and fought the fight, just like a lot of guys would have risen through the ranks in the military and become, you know, majors and colonels with the kind of abuse that they used to met out at basic training. What can you say, man? Different types, different strokes. Don't know if she was dogging it. They came out with some report today about what was going on. You know, I mean, and it's not something that's likely to go away. You know, it's not like a guy who I like, so I'm not going to mention his name. When they call him out to his fight and they go back to the dressing room, he's gone. Guy's got really bad stage fright and just couldn't hack it. That's it, man. Career gone. You've known him as he's a jiu-jitsu player.
Terrell?
I don't know, man. He's a very dangerous man, and he's in the Bay Area. I don't know.
I see. All right.
Maybe there were other guys who had the same problem. But I didn't say what you just said.
Hey, I don't know the guy, so, you know.
I'm in jiu-jitsu places all the time, so I need to watch my ass.
So what do you do with Amanda then? What do you do with this situation?
If I'm WME, you know what, man? I'm going with women's events as co-mains. You know,
just for this one time, this one thing, she's messing up for everybody, man.
Well, no. I mean, there's certain regular people. Joanna Jędrzejczyk won the PR belt of the day. you know, for throwing herself in there. She knew it was not likely that she was going to get the fight, but she seems like a gamer. People like that. People remember 10 bonus PR points. Amanda, you know, she's got to fight again, but man, can you trust her? No, you cannot. Can she fight as a co-main? Yeah, maybe she could work her way in, but she said a lot of crazy stuff after she beat Ronda. You know, there are these people who come in, they rise up to be spoilers, and then they dissipate. Chris Weidman v. Anderson Silva. You know, Amanda Nunes against Ronda. We don't know. And then the first thing she says after Ronda, she's talking about retirement and crazy talk like that. We don't know. I mean, there are a lot of things going on there that we don't know, but as a main, I stand by the bald one on this one. I just can't. You're a gift. You know, you're a gal I can't trust. I just can't. There's millions of dollars involved here. I can't fuck around because you had a fucking sinus headache. Sorry.
What about you, Nate?
They already decided. I mean, Dana White came out and said they weren't going to book her any main events. And I know we can't trust anything Dana White says, but it does have a certain significance that he's saying this. And yeah, I mean, this is the fight game, ladies. You got to get out there and fight. Like, sinusitis, I know it sucks, but people fight with broken hands and, you know, the flu and the raging shits. And I mean, get out there and fight. This is your job. This is your career. This is the big time. And yeah, no, I would definitely, they already are not, they hadn't been pushing it for shit, you know, so they're going to, I'd book her against Cyborg if I was them. That's what I'd do.
Yep. And then would you have the Chael Sonnen suggestion of forfeit if
they can legally do that, if that's legal with the commissions, yeah, do that.
Yeah, so set her up versus Cyborg and have a forfeit.
Well, I mean, look, you know, it's not like she didn't know it was important too. So you have to say, knowing it's as important as it was, this was her big moment. You know, I mean, look, I knew guys who were great at what they did, great grapplers, because they had deathly fears of losing. So they didn't want to do anything that would put them in the way of losing. They would lie, cheat, and steal, train like crazy, because what losing told them about themselves, they couldn't fucking handle. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, you know, Valentina Shevchenko didn't seem to be rattled by the head game. I never really thought of Amanda as a head fighter, but maybe that rattled. Maybe it all contributed. Maybe Vegas and the lights and the cameras and that people were actually excited about this fight. Maybe that shook and rattled and rolled. Who knows? I don't know, but you know what? We all go to work tomorrow, and there's no I don't know about it. You know, our bosses don't pay us because I don't know. You're gonna do that. You're gonna do a show tomorrow, Nate? I don't know.
I do know, and we are at 10:20 Central Time.
No, but here's what the difference is. That's why I put the own in references is the fact that you're not talking about a situation. You're talking about a situation where everything leading up to the actual fight, you know, say fight to the fight day, right? Hours before the fight, suggested she was going to do it. You know, you have the weigh-in. She participates in the pre-fight stuff. She does the embedded. She does the weigh-ins. She says she's not feeling well. She ends up doing the ceremonial weigh-ins. She gets checked. And then hours before, yeah, I'm pulling out. Now, again, you know,
that I got to say, in her defense, the medical check they gave her was just about weight cutting issues. So they were not checking her for sinusitis or any of that. But I mean,
here's what I don't know about that though. So she goes in to see a doctor to get cleared, medically cleared, and she says nothing about sinusitis or headaches or any of that kind of stuff. And like, you know what, I'm concerned because I'm not feeling, like Eugene just said, articulated, right? Like, yeah, I'm already having these splitting headaches. I'm going to go in the ring and get hit. You know, like my judgment's impaired. Like, is this safe? The doctor's like, I'm not listening to any of that stuff. Heartbeat's fine. Blood pressure's fine. Yeah, you can fight. I mean, maybe it was. Maybe it was like, what do you say?
Is it a language barrier issue?
I don't.
No, she's got
Vegas doctor only talks
because it seems like the kind of doctor it would have to be one of those like sideline NFL doctors, you know, where it's like, all right, shoot him up, go back in there, you know.
Hey man, have you ever seen Aguirre, the Wrath of God?
Of course.
Okay, so the last 5 minutes when he's on the raft and he's just spinning around, he's giving orders to all the monkeys that have clambered aboard the raft. That's I know it's an extreme analog, but that might be an analog for what's happening at the UFC right now. And WME, film people that they are, should take note. You know, I'm looking right now at Burt. I don't see it happen under Burt's watch. You don't think you need a fixer in there? Everybody's like, what did Burt do anyway? You know, when the gyre turned as it inevitably does, first there's outpouring of sympathy, then there was like, what did that guy really do anyway? But you know, you have a fixer, and you don't know what that fixer does until that fixer is not there. You know, somebody said, oh well, it's lack of IV. I don't know what the fuck it was, but you didn't have a fixer down there. So right away, when people are feeling a little peaked, a little shaky, they go right to the hospital. I don't go to those doctors for my fucking jujitsu injuries because they don't understand what I'm doing. You know, like, well, just stop doing that then. That's not a solution for me, man. I need a creative workaround. And if you're not here for that, then you don't need to be here. So what does she do? She feels ill. She goes to a doctor. Boom. The doctor, like Alexi said a few hours earlier, was like, fine. There was no mention. And then, bing, it hits suddenly. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say this is, you know, drama queen, dramatics. And you know, what's next? And I'm going to mention a few things here in order. Irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, overactive thyroid.
Lyme's disease.
Well, yeah. Well, no, Lyme's disease are real things. I mean, they're these things that sit on the psychosomatic edge that you just don't. There's no way to measure them really. You can't really tell. I get into a car accident. That's the first thing I start screaming about. You know, oh, boy, my thyroid feels weird. You know, I mean, how to prove it? He's lazy. He's lazy and fat. No, I got a thyroid problem. See, thyroid. So I don't know. I have to lean on. She knew it was important. She knew it was super important. She knew it wouldn't play well, and she did.
And also
anyway.
having a foot out the door anyway. I mean, that's the thing that if you're going to put everything on the table and try to figure out, you know, who's likely telling the truth or closest to the truth. I mean, you look at the fact that you have a fighter that's not in, and we'll get to him later, it's not in just engaging mode of like, I'm going all out. You know, have somebody that said as soon as she won, I'm going to retire in a couple of fights.
Yep. Well, for some people, it's getting to the mountaintop, and some people want to own that mountaintop. You know, I mean,
it's also the way she's been treated, though. I mean, you got to remember she was dealing with executives when she fought Ronda who didn't even know who she was, and she's headlining the card. And then Dana White has done nothing but shit on her ever since she won the title, and only made it worse. I mean, they got to establish better relationships with more fighters because the morale is low, and they you know, they don't have Lorenzo around to give them that family bullshit anymore, and it's all, you know, Dana just knows how to play bad cop, it seems, and they got to have a good cop.
Yep, from company to company, companies all over the place that I know. People don't flee the job, they flee the manager, man.
Yep.
You know, and Mousasi said as much today. He was like, just a feeling I had, but okay.
Foreshadowing.
In literary terms, foreshadowing.
So, Nate, your Showtime.
Oh, my God.
Less than 1 day after Brendan Schaub posted an image of his involvement as, quote, part of the Showtime boxing team for hashtag Mayweather-McGregor press conference pre- and post-shows, end quote, along with MMA reporter Ariel Helwani. Helwani tweeted, quote, not working for @Show Sports anymore on the May Mac tour. That's a rhyme. Wow. Just learned UFC specifically asked to have me removed. Incredibly disappointed. End quote. Is it better PR to address or ignore your involvement in UFC versus Helwani 2? Dana White's bugaboo.
Well, this is one of those things where they try to do a friend a favor or a business associate a favor, and judging from the Twitter reaction, it didn't go over very well. It overshadowed all the other shit they were trying to hype because all the people that were pissed, you know, UFC tweeted out. If I was Showtime, I would try to stay out of it as much as I could. But the time to do that, the way to do that was to run the ship by the UFC before you did it, not after the fact. And I don't know if Showtime did run it past UFC, and maybe the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, and, you know, the sane, responsible adult that they called at the UFC was like, oh, sure, no problem, and then Dana White finds out. That could be the problem. But my guess is Showtime didn't run it past the UFC first, and they really should have. If you're going to be getting MMA talent, then clear that shit with the UFC. Once you've already done it, man, I don't think it's worth the hassle of unfiring the guy. Like, I think you got to ride it out at this point.
Hold on. Is any?
Huh?
I agree with you probably 100% in a rare case right here. But hold on, is anybody talking about unfiring the guy?
No, but he asked, what would you do if you're Showtime, and that's theoretically one of the options, you know.
Yeah. No. This is what I've learned is big corporations don't unfire anybody, even if that man has been sexually harassed for months on end by his boss named Kathy, and he got the emails to prove it. It looks like they'll pay you and let you go, but they won't do what needs to be done, which is justice. But in this instance, Well, you know what I say. It rains on the just and the unjust alike. How about that for a little Bible?
Well, one thing is if you actually look at the that presser and you see Dana White there as the hype man for Conor McGregor, you kind of imagine how awkward it would have been to have Ariel Helwani there. You know, so in terms of optics, and, you know, again, seeing Dana there, I mean, that kind of put a stamp on it. If he wasn't there, you're like, okay, wow, this is so weird. Like, oh, okay.
You know, there are people. I've learned a lot by hanging around dangerous guys, and I'm not even talking about fighters. I'm talking about like bad guys. And to a person, I find that most of the bad guys are not like Joe Pesci from fucking Goodfellas. They're really actually super quiet. And that's because you don't know when stuff is going to turn, you know. So and you'll discover that if you keep quiet for any length of time. I mean, not when I'm on the show, but in the environment, you'll learn. I went out with this crazy woman once, and she goes, "People will tell you everything you need to know if you're just quiet long enough." And I was like, "Yeah." So I see the bald one on stage, and I'm like, he's like one of these compulsive meers, you know. I, me, I. He's really taking that Don King thing to heart, and it's just like he didn't need to be there. I mean, Mayweather, it was a glorious stare down, and I'll tell you why. I'm sure it's going to come up later in the show, but you know, the bald one was in there. I was shocked, embarrassed, and sort of appalled, you know.
It occurs to me a new angle on this that I'm embarrassed I didn't think of before. What if Showtime deliberately picked Brandon Schaub because dumbass and Ariel Helwani because of exactly this situation, because they're trying to make MMA look like a shit show? Like, I mean, nothing against Brandon Schaub, and he's fine on his podcast with the other dude, but he's not somebody I would be just porting into media situations. You know, like if I was going to draft all the various talent out of the MMA world, Brandon would not be in the top 10. And I think somebody might have been tickling their own funny bone at the UFC's expense with this whole charade. That's what I think.
Okay, all right, listen. No. Anybody who's about to comment and call bullshit on Nate, stop right now, because I remember back in the day, I used to go out with this woman who was worked at a big advertising company and was told hands down, do not take any advertising from mixed martial arts. They're on the outs. We've got friends at Anheuser-Busch who are deep in with the boxing folks, and I go, no, you're kidding. And she goes, I'm absolutely not kidding. I mean, I sat in a meeting, looked into somebody's face, and they told me this. Now, it's not secondhand, it's not third hand, it's not suggested, it's not implied. It was directly told. And this is Anheuser-Busch putting the finger on MMA in the early days. Now we're talking like 2 decades ago, but that shit, if you don't think that stuff happens, you're crazy. If you don't think that essentially TV has been at war with movies since TV was invented in 1949, you're crazy. We see bubbles of that right now in Cannes, where Cannes was like, fuck Netflix, it's TV, it's not film. You know, and Netflix is like, you're insignificant. We don't even fucking need you. So believe me, these wars, they're not over anytime soon. You know, World War II, is just really an extension of World War One. You know, the Nazis were a direct outcropping of the fucking troops from World War One. It's not a surprise. People in Haiti are still fucking struggling because of having to pay the reparations back to the French after the revolution. Not crazy. History is long, you know. So the fact that Showtime could have pulled this off, not crazy in my mind.
Well, also given the fact that if there is interest in MMA after this fight, I mean, during the build-up after this fight, what kind of MMA programming is Showtime going to offer immediately, right? Who do they have locked up?
Yeah.
Right? If this were back in the day, you know, if it was a Strike Force day, they wouldn't be with the UFC.
All I keep thinking about is Gus Johnson.
Oh, Gus.
I like Gus Johnson, man.
And then the memes that sprang up with him.
Painted up like a clown. And yeah, it was glorious.
Man. So, Eugene, you're Floyd Mayweather.
Yes.
Last week, you petitioned the tax court to wait until your Conor McGregor mega fight check clears before you cough up the cash for unpaid taxes from your 2015 Manny Pacquiao pugilistic puke fest. What is your PR response when this inevitably arises from the press that despises having to advertise this May payday?
Oh, you think that's an accident? You think a guy who's planned everything, meticulously planned his entire fucking career, you think that this is an accident? I mean, you know, when I go into jiu-jitsu competition, somebody said, they said, man, we saw you go into that competition. We were like worried. We're thinking like, you got to stop competing. And I wasn't even conscious of it. Like I do it when I do go on stage with Oxbow. I was walking really slowly and deliberatively, and I was like concentrating and paying attention, just getting out to the center of the mat. But to them, it looked like I was like a crotchety old man. I was like, hey, that's a good cover, you know? And I realized other things I do before. I don't eat well. I slept in a car before I won the belt at Grappler's Quest. All these things to kind of, like Johnny Boney Joni. I'm snorting coke. I'm fucking around. And he told DC, he goes, you know, I beat you high. You know, I mean, but you know what it does? It doesn't serve the upside. It serves the downside, right? If by some weird stretch of the imagination, Mayweather gets knocked out, he's like, man, I had a lot of things on my head. I think, you know, I had this tax thing, and I was compelled to do this. I didn't have enough time to train, right? I call it pre-excusing. And if you don't think fucking elite athletes do it, you're crazy.
What about you, Nate?
I think Mayweather plans his boxing career brilliantly. I do not think Mayweather plans his financial situation at all adequately. And I think
he has somebody who pays a lot of money to do it.
And I think some of those people walk off with a lot of his fucking money. That's, you know, trust your mechanic.
You got nothing to back that up.
The dude can't pay his tax bill.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty big evidence, and I think that's the whole reason he took this fight in the first place, because he needed the money, because he's got a high fucking burn rate, and he's got a big entourage, and he's got big houses, and he's got lots of bills, legal bills, divorce bills, you know, child support, all that shit. And I think, yeah. I think, dude.
I like Nate just went off the speculative pier. I think that leprechauns live in his basement, and if he could only find Rumpelstiltskin, he could make him some gold.
This is not the first time he's had cash flow issues, and I think this is why we're here. I think Mayweather needs money.
But this is not stuff. You know, your communications with the IRS are not necessarily public records, right? You could call up and ask for an extension quite easily. You know, how is it? It becomes a press item. Well, it becomes a press item because somebody got wind of it. How is it that somebody got wind of it? You guys don't know whether I paid my taxes, right? Nobody's asking. Well, nobody's asking, and nobody's telling. So, you know, it just seems to me. You know, like, who benefits? Who benefits? You know, I mean, all key bono. So it also gives grist to, you know, Conor got off some good tax blast, you know, kind of in an interesting way. You know, it's I mean, it's all monkey show, man. It's all monkey show.
Do you think this sets up any kind of rematch potential?
Well, to have a rematch, you have to create a situation in which he loses, which I don't
Even
really.
in MMA, even in MMA, if he.
No. That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
Hmm.
And he's not losing, so just yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would still think it was worth putting $50 on McGregor, just because of the fucking odds. You never know. There are lots of ways to lose a fight without losing a fight, but yeah, I don't think he's.
And there's lots of ways to lose money, and betting on a dog like this is one of the
Yeah. Well, what I
easiest.
what I liked about it, the stare down was great, and McGregor was like, I saw fear in his eyes. It's like just because Donald Trump got away with saying things, like Dr. Pangloss in Candide's Voltaire. If Dr. Pangloss says it is so, must be so. It must be so. Donald Trump goes, oh, we're ahead. You can just say it. And people, it's like a neuro linguistic program. People will believe it. You just say it enough times, they'll believe it. Just like the Nazis, lie enough times, people believe it. But the reality of it is, Conor McGregor saying he saw fear in Mayweather's eyes. I go, okay, let me Zap Bruder it. So I go, I'm slowing it down and I'm looking and I go, you know what it is? That's not fear at all. It's like dance, monkey boy, dance. That's what it was. That's what I saw. It's like it's my house, it's my money. It's I am the headlining act here. So start working, boy. Come on, chop chop. I want to see some soft shoe and do some tricks and stuff. Conor McGregor is going like this to the audience and trying to get looking at him and Mayweather's just staring at him. It's like I gotta be here to make you some money. I mean, it's a red panty night all over, except the panties are on another ass now. They're on McGregor's ass, because he's got to produce. He's got to make people think that this is worthwhile. And all Mayweather has to do is show up. It was pretty stony. It was, I can see McGregor could try to recast it, but Mayweather being afraid, not what I saw.
No.
Well, Nate, you're the UFC. For the past year, you've encouraged fighters to be like Conor McGregor.
Okay.
So am I the WME or the UFC?
No, UFC. Gegard Mousasi took that to heart, finishing fights, talking trash, and remaking himself into a fighter with a presence as marketable as his impressive international resume. Yet, you allegedly stopped negotiating once you learned he was talking to Bellator, where he eventually signed with. What PR lesson were you making by refusing to re-sign Gegard?
You're sending a message to other fighters not to try to play you off against Bellator. And admittedly, I fell into this myself. There's a certain amount of bullshit. This is not the old UFC. This is not Joe Silva's UFC or Lorenzo Fertitta's UFC. Those guys hoarded the best fighters. If you were at a certain level, they wanted you in the UFC because they saw it as the major leagues. WME is making a completely different calculation, and they're just looking like, does this guy move numbers? No. And are there plenty more where this guy came from? Yes. Fuck him. Send him on his way. Let the other fighters know that if we get wind that you're trying to play us off against Bellator and create some kind of bidding war, you can just toddle on down the street and enjoy being on Spike TV, dude, because we don't need you. We ain't going to miss you. I mean, they've got, 85% of the people in the top 10 of every division. I mean, they can keep doing this repeatedly, and they will be just fine. So that's what I would do with the UFC. Exactly what they did.
Yeah,
What about you, Eugene?
I think there's that whole weird perception and reality thing, right? At what point do you reach a critical mass of people going like, "Oh shit"? I mean, this is kind of a mass movement. If you don't think people who were, I mean, at first it's the fringe. At first it's guys who are 7, 6, 5s. And then it's guys who are 4s, 3s, and 2s. And then there's guys who are getting tired of being ridden hard like fucking Johnny Boney Joni. It was like, hey, you know what? Fuck this, man. Fuck this shit. People become fighters for a certain reason. And one of the things that Mousasi said that I thought was buried, buried after the lead, but was significant for me given my life situation and experience. He goes, I didn't like the way I was being talked to. That's it, man. It doesn't have to do with I will negotiate. I heard this or happened. I don't like I was being talked to, man. You know what? I'm not your fucking butler. I'm not. We are co-equal partners, and if you don't see that, then we're not having a meeting of the minds. I don't care how many $300 million bank accounts you got. I don't give a fuck. I'll leave. The calculation for me is, how many more years do I want to do this? 5? How many years have I been doing it? Has anybody that you know been doing a job for 15 fucking years? I don't think so. 5 more years. I want to spend those 5 more years before I turn 40 or 45 or however old Mousasi is, profitably and happily. And it doesn't mean being treated like a fucking butler by the likes of you. So I think it was personal. And I think personal will go seriously a long way. It's like you're expecting people to do career calculations. You know, when Kat Zingano is tweeting out pictures of her 50% off Reebok thing, and then who was it? Somebody pegged that Reebok deal. I think it was Mousasi. He goes, it was miserable for fighters. It was not for the fighters. It was not for anything but the sale. It's bad for Reebok. Reebok doesn't like it. The fighters don't like it. Nobody wins except for the guys who collected the money. And then, you know, the sub thing is that same guy who's talking to me like I'm a fucking servant. Fuck you. I don't see that Mousasi loses anything. I'll watch him as long as he's fighting. That's the thing. It's not the fight. I mean, what? You wouldn't watch him against Phil Davis?
You're not answering the question. You're supposed to be the UFC, not Mousasi. You're...
Oh, I got carried away. I got if I'm the UFC at this point, it's too late, man. Barn, door, horse, gone. Fuck it. At this point now, you know, I want those guys. I want those guys who are 3, 4, 5. But 4, 5, 6, I want them to stick around. It's not about numbers. We make numbers, you know, if we're the UFC. We all know that. It's not about that. It's about, you know, they want some kind of weird compliance and ass kissing. They're not going to get that. We make numbers. They made Chuck Norris a star. They could have made Mousasi a star. Not a Conor McGee star, but a Mousasi star.
Chuck Norris? When did the UFC make Chuck Norris a star?
I'm talking about them, them who made him a star. Zero, square root of -2 charisma. You can make a star at anybody. You just give him a lane. Just let him do their, you know, Uncle Creepy, always canceling the fights, but he had a little niche, you know. Some of these guys, Brian Ebersol, had a little niche. A lot of these fighters have a niche. You just you know, Chuck Liddell had a little niche. Didn't have the greatest personality, but had a niche, you know.
Well, that's perfect for the next question, Eugene. Somebody who has a niche, dealing with the little, because you're fighter Gabi Garcia.
Oh, man.
Last week you won a fight live and in public view by illegally soccer kicking an opponent you outweighed by 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Is it better for your career to continue your can-crushing freak show fight mismatch tour, or take on real competition and risk becoming a female Bob Sapp?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's going to be hard to find real competition for Gabi Garcia, man, unless you're going to have co-ed MMA. It's really going to be difficult, and yet we want to see her fight. And you know, you notice my tone is softening because I've been reading the unkind commentary about Gabi Garcia and the chromosomal thing. It's like, no, don't hate. I've seen her in person, and she's every bit as frightening as she seems. But she seems like a very nice. She seems like a very nice woman, you know. But you know, people got to eat, man. When you fill out that tax form that says, you know, fighter, that's got to mean something somewhere. And it's not like, you know, some people are in 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. It's not really easy to go back, you know. Where do you see Gabi Garcia working that would afford with what she's thinking about and how her head's working and how she's moving through life? Is she going to work at McDonald's? No, well, it doesn't have to be. What is she going to be, work at a veterinarian's office? I mean, I don't know what her plans are, what her abilities are, but she should be able to fight. But the likelihood of her having people that she's going to be able to ably meet, it's low. It's fucking low, man, you know. I mean, I really don't know fighting these fights like that is a road to disaster, however, because somebody's going to get seriously hurt. And then, as with any freak show, they're going to turn around. They're going to go, hey, who are the guilty parties? And the promoters will be nowhere to be found, and Gabi will be holding the bag. But what is she going to do?
I've got an idea for Gabi. Call out Bob Sapp.
Shit. I would.
Yeah. Can you imagine the beating she put on him? It would be 15 seconds.
you know, you're right.
Fiercest
Hey,
clinching
man.
Bob's ever done, man.
Hey, now that we're in WME land, I'm thinking about like old Los Angeles, old Hollywood, and I'm having to sit down with those two. And I guess what? You're a couple now. What? What do you mean? I don't even. You're a fucking couple. I want you to go to a few movie premieres. You show up at Chasen's. You know, you hang out at Roddy McDowell's house. Whatever you got to do. Go to the Brown Derby. Make the scene because you got. Look, has anybody figured out what Kim Kardashian does? I still haven't. And, you know, outside of showing up and getting a photo taken, I don't know what the fuck she does. I guess some perfume and some, which is all branding and just the name on the bottle. So I'm pushing WME style. I'm pushing Bob Sapp and Gabi Garcia, the new it couple.
Man. Well, Nate, what can Jay-Z learn from MMA in wake of being charged with anti-Semitic rap lyrics?
Let's see. I've said circle out before, and I've said tap out. I would say in this instance that he should just ignore it and move on. I mean, this is a very minor kerfluffle. And does anybody listen to that song anyway? Like,
yo, yeah, the story of OJ.
Yeah,
it's over.
I
12,
the video,
it's over 12 million people listen to that. At least watch the video.
That's not big numbers for Jay-Z though. Like
big numbers, Rocks Bowl. I mean, I am impressed. I don't give a shit.
The thing, well, yeah, and I dug the video too. I'm a big Jay-Z fan, but let's see.
And the character's name was J-Bo, so maybe that's an Oxbow Jay-Z.
Maybe. What can he learn from MMA? Now, see, I knew this was coming, but I should have looked at the script. I knew that this MMA thing is hard. Let's go back to the accents. Let's go back to the accents. Can I do this?
No. You know, my favorite part of that video is when OJ says, you know, I'm not black, I'm OJ. And he goes, okay. Yeah. that line reading of that one word, okay, summed up for why I've hated OJ ever since the 60s. It was just perfect. It's like, come on. When the time he got in trouble, suddenly OJ became black. I felt the same way with Michael Jackson. Suddenly they're black, you know. At least Tiger Woods took his fucking lumps. He didn't become suddenly fucking black, you know. And it's like, oh, God being harassed and stop it. So
what can Jay-Z learn?
I think I'm gonna have to from MMA at this point now. I think you start talking about your next fight. No, I think you gotta. There's no benefit. Remember that fighter who came out and he was sponsored by a neo-Nazi clothing company, and it turns out you remember. Oh yeah. And at the point where that guy was opening his mouth to explain anything, he had already lost. So, you know, much like that guy, he was be like, you just got to go turn that page as quickly as possible because you just can't. You know what? People are not stupid. People are pretty smart. And you look at that song and go, did you need to say Jewish people?
Right.
You didn't really. I mean, Jew or Jewish didn't make any internal rhyme.
But you can't go back to tell him to rewrite the song. It's too late. Songs out, videos made.
I'm saying why the only thing to do is, you know, don't apologize, don't explain, just move ahead because people are not stupid. They're looking at it like you chose that word and you chose that word for a fucking reason. And you could have put white people, but that way, you know, right. Then he's like, well, I got M&Ms out there, you know, poor white folks in Detroit who say, well, I don't own shit. What are you talking about? So once again, in a very similar way to the ways Jews have always been used, it was just a convenient thing to say. He could have been contemporary, like a guy who I know. Have you guys heard about ghost houses? No. Now, this guy I know. This is his former jiu-jitsu player, did this long rant the other day about Palo Alto. And he said, you know, our community is being decimated by Chinese. And I go, what are you talking about Chinese, man? He goes, they come over from China with bags of cash. They buy houses in Palo Alto So when their kids get older, they get the address. They can go to great schools because it's supposed to be a good school district, or at the very least, as an investment, 5 years later, your $2 million house is a $4 million house. He goes, but they don't contribute to the community because why? Because they don't live in the houses. They don't live in the houses. So you have neighborhoods full of empty houses that, you know, gardeners show up to twice.
Vancouver
Yep.
just passed a massive tax on unoccupied houses for that very reason, and it is true. And it's not a racial thing; it's an economic and political thing. You got all these buckwads from the Chinese Politburo that have been. I mean, China's a mafia country. You know, you've got 25 families that have been running the country.
Oh, you know what? Hey, you know what? Kid Nate lives in Texas. I don't really even know him.
I mean, I'm just telling you, the Chinese communists, this is like a royal family or a mafia family. The fix is in. It's unbelievably corrupt. People are grabbing money with both hands, and they've seen governors go down in flames because they got crosswise with the big boss. And so everybody there is stealing everything they can and looking at the exits. And so they're buying up property as a fallback with their dirty money. And, you know,
dirty money knows how to
Huh?
treat a girl. You know, dirty money knows how to treat a girl.
This is true.
Clips.
But yeah, so back to Jay-Z. I think he uses this as a learning moment. He does some educational shit with some prominent Jewish people and gets into the whole thing. Because what he said wasn't exactly anti-Semitic, but it's so along the lines of the kinds of shit that has been used against the Jewish people for so long that Jewish people are going to take it anti-Semitic, and they're right to do that.
Like BB said, given the history of my people on this planet, if I have a choice between overreacting and underreacting, I'm going to overreact.
Speaking of corrupt scumbags, there's a massive article on all the BB scandals that he's linked to.
Yeah.
That came out the other day. But anyway, so I think Jay-Z's like, he's put out the video, you know, he's in it, and now he can do a little bit of explaining. I don't think it's going to hurt him.
Nah, he's got.
I think the closest MMA corollary to this would have been, but it's not exact because he recorded a song, right? So there's no question of whether or not you heard him correctly. The closest thing almost is like a Yoel Romero, you know, no forget Jesus, you know.
Yeah,
and
right.
so at least for Yoel Romero, they can say, oh, no. He's saying no forget Jesus. That's what he's saying. Don't forget Jesus. The accent.
That was a nice thing.
He tried to play something similar, in terms of what his meaning was. But at the end of the day, we all heard his delivery. So,
well, and also, if you haven't seen that with as much money as he has, if you haven't seen that the Jay-Z pivot has started, you're not paying attention because the pivot has started. The news cycle today was not news cycle. Yesterday was the anti-Semitic thing. The news cycle today has to do with what the record was really for as an apologia to his wife.
Yep.
And it gets in and he's doing more revelations, and it says that more, and was it New York Daily News or was it Esquire where he said, I was a liar, you got to be 100% on, and he just shoved the anti-Semitic shit off stage. And that's some smart fucking PR.
Yeah.
And
answer the next question, or just, you know.
Yep.
Speaking of which, it's
so how would you put that in MMA terms? We're trying to learn to do this segment. So what would be the MMA analog to, hey, look over there, which is what that is?
He made a statement at a press conference. Post-fight, he did the interview in the ring, says something foul, fight's over. The next day, the fallout for the interview, you just start talking about something else in your past to derail the topic. So I don't know in an MMA context anyone has done that. Has anyone avoided controversy?
Like
what?
Would you call it a feint? Like, let's keep the MMA reference. What can you learn from MMA should be inside the cage.
Yep.
Like,
I would say feint. I'd say it's a pretty potent feint. And I mean, most people have tried to do that with varying degrees if they've been dirty in their own personal lives, you know, right? You come home at 4 a.m. Okay. What happened? Right. Okay. So I got a flat, all right, and then they were doing construction and the road was jammed up, and that's why I'm late and smell like liquor, because I was so tense I had to drink in the tow truck on the way back.
Well, Nate teaching us about the segment brings us to a teachable moment. So,
Teachable moment or a heel turn? Are we doing a heel turn?
Oh,
yeah, we're doing a heel turn still.
Oh, okay. So sorry. I jumped on your teachable moment. It's an off night. Everybody's entitled. We've been off for 2 weeks. I'm rusty. I got
you have been on.
All you have to do is listen to the host of the show, me.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what you have to answer next.
Everybody thinks it's so easy.
And John Nash and I were holding it down, and you were gallivanting about God knows where. I don't know. I don't know even where. I don't know what you were doing.
I was very busy with some very important things.
So, teachable moment. Eugene, you're Rob Kardashian. Last week, you were so angered at your baby mama Black China's cheating, you posted private images of her privates and plastic surgery secrets on Instagram, who shut down your account. So you reposted the pics on Twitter, and in return, you received a restraining order from Black China, are facing revenge porn charges that could result in you ending up having 6 months in jail, and also loss of custody of your child. What can we learn from your horrid handling of baby mama drama?
So who am I? I'm the fat kid.
Rob Kardashian.
Right. If I'm Rob Kardashian right now,
what can we learn from him?
What can we learn from him? Oh man, you just stepped all over my line. I was gonna use Pretty Amberg's line about why don't you put that gun in your mouth and see how many times you could pull the trigger. But you know what? As a columnist with Sex with Eugene, I had to feel this stuff a lot, and I've talked to lawyers about revenge porn. And recently, like last week, I had a letter from the mistress who was wanting to send video or photographic proof of her affair with the husband to the husband's wife. Yeah, that shit. Yeah, like everybody who I told that to, like guys at jiu-jitsu, guys were all like, that's like fucking sarin gas, man. You know, okay, dude shouldn't be fucking around, but you could tell the wife that you are the mistress, but giving video proof, that's fucking dirty pool, you know? So the revenge, and I consulted with some cops, the cops said, interestingly enough, the mistress sending video to the wife, not against the law. It is not, it's to inform and not to shame. Putting stuff out in the public marketplace is against the law. And look, man, hey, man, you know, she's gone, you know. And what is that supposed to prove anyway? Everybody knows she's got titties. I don't understand this fucking shaming. He should go to jail. It was beneath a gentleman, and that guy is no gentleman. These are, in fact, totally garbage people. The fact that we spend any time talking about them all, I'm chagrined by this. But the reality of it is, I'm looking at it as like a sex columnist. I'm looking at it as a person who studies human relationships. Can't do it, man. I don't care how angry you are. You know, you could show up at the boyfriend's house and say what was depicted in the picture, and you don't do it because it looks pathetic. But it's easy now to send out the pictures like, oh, look at this woman who's so stupid she had sex with me once. Come on, man, stop it. Just stop. But the guy's a piece of shit anyway, so.
There you go. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I think just stop it is the key advice that we can learn from Ask Clown. Like, yeah, this is just, yeah. Eugene covered this thoroughly, I think.
But he didn't cover the kid Nate's heel turn. So
no, he did not. He did not. And I've got a bitter one.
Ooh.
Because Don Jr.'s always been my favorite Trump. And Clown has fucked up so bad. I mean, all of us that have been skeptical about this Russian stuff are a little pissed at this moment. When email, like you put out the email on yourself. What angle are they working here? Like, does he know?
Smart. I can do things. How do you think that make me feel, Michael?
It's Fredo. It is definitely Fredo. But like Kushner was there at the meeting. Manafort was there at the meeting. Like, and these leaks came from inside the White House. That's what I don't understand. Were they just trying to get out ahead of the New York Times story? And was that because shit's even worse that's about to come out? Because generally, if you're trying to get out ahead of a story, it's bad. And you're trying to you're trying to lance the boil, but he didn't lance a boil. I mean, this just like spectacular bravura incompetence. And the other heel turn I've got is from Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and all these fuckers. Like, is there nothing that these assholes can do that will get you to call them on it? Like Paul Ryan, Ted Cruz, hello? I mean, meeting with a foreign government, and it's not treason. I still think that's bullshit to say this is treason because we're not at war with Russia. You got to be at war with the country to commit treason. Treason has a meaning. It's a capital crime. This is not treason, but it's a fucking flagrant violation of election law, even under Citizens United, which softened some of this shit from taking money from foreign countries. And it's just staggering. I'm completely, Trump's actually been kind of a relief to me because they've been so fucking incompetent that they're not able to do any of the scary shit they're talking about. But now it's just like, whoo, I don't know. That's the heel turn. It's just like, what the fuck are you thinking? I mean, to write this shit down, who writes down in an email, yeah, we're going to meet with the Russian government or with the representative of the Russian government? Because this lady, it turns out, was not the top prosecutor that they referenced. She was somebody sent by the top prosecutor.
He knew. He didn't know shit.
You know the difference.
Yeah.
She sounded Russian.
Yeah. And I mean, it's for a minute I thought they were trying to do a bear trap because I think there is some reason to believe that the Clinton campaign was paying for the PP dossier. Remember the PP dossier, the golden shower dossier that came out from MI6?
Golden shower. It's getting near the hour.
And
sorry.
There's some reason to believe that some of that money was paid by the retired MI6 guy directly to Russian officials as a bribe to get that shit. So I thought maybe the Trumps have the goods on the Clintons paying money to Russians, which would be like a Karl Rove level jujitsu, like the time he burned Dan Rather by forging a document that actually existed.
Yeah,
which is my theory on that shit. But these people are not Karl Rove. And so, yeah. Anyway, that's the heel turn.
So, Eugene, he brought up your boy Karl Rove.
Yeah, my close personal friend. I'm going to see him next week.
So, time for your Lost Battalion.
Well, you remember that joke about Aga Khan that Eddie Murphy told about why would you shoot the Pope? You shoot the Pope because you want to cut the line into hell. You got to shoot the Pope to cut the line into hell. I started thinking about the line to the Lost Battalion, and then I was like, somebody mentioned, they go, it's kind of like Fabricio Verdum got tired of waiting in line, like he just wanted to jump to the front. And so he files an appeal. Not the outcome of the Overeem fight. Now, I think he's justified. I think that it was close enough, so it doesn't seem completely laughable that he files an appeal. However, however, look at the history of the appeal and look to see if it's ever been reversed for anybody at all ever. I mean, it has, but not over something like this. Your best bet is to take your lumps and look downfield, because if you don't think a Joe Silva as I don't want to criticize the guy who's gone, but in the early days, Joe Silva was by the seat of his fucking pants. Later on, he became a master tactician when he was looking downfield, which is what Verdum should be doing, given how sparse. I mean, you look at Curtis Blades, man. I told you on Knuckle Up. That made my sympathy. My heart went out to Kid Nate. If Kid Nate feels the way if he feels when he watches Francis Carmont the way I felt while watching Curtis Blades, then Kid Nate's been suffering for a long fucking time. This is heavyweights, So yeah. So I say Fabrizio Verdum has elbowed his way to the front of the line. Not in yet, but elbowed his way to the front of the line. I don't think there are any new additions. I'm not really willing to. Oh, I'm sorry. There. I tried to sneak in Travis Brown, and people got on me for that. They're like, Travis Brown, you can't quit your way into the fucking Lost Battalion. Travis Brown has no illusions about I'm gonna get the belt. I'm gonna do this. He's just fucking there for the paycheck, man. And when they said it, when the D-Man is the one who said it, when he said it, it suddenly seemed right. So I wanted to put Travis Brown there. Can't. You know, Verdum has just elbowed his way to the front of the line. I think everybody else was from a previous week. You know, I'm not. You know, I don't see anybody who lost this week. I think a lot of people who lost did themselves some favors. You know, Michael Johnson, that fight with Gagey, I don't think he's not at all out of the running. He's in a good place. Lost Battalion, outside those wannabes, I don't see anybody that guarantees entry. I mean, somebody did say something kind of it was Pettis. He said something crazy, but you know what? He had a good night. He's entitled one day of craziness. You know.
So for those who didn't see Knuckle Up, what about your Bony Joni update?
That was sad, man. Some guy wrote in. He was in the middle of texting me, and he was like, I was making fun, and then you got your text, and it was like somebody threw a bucket of cold water on me to refresh the people who didn't see it and Knuckle Up. While I'm watching the fights on Saturday, I started getting texts from my spies in New Mexico who were at King of the Cage. And it's like, fuck, Johnny Boney Joni's at King of the Cage. What the fuck is he doing here? How come he's not in Vegas? Don't know. DC wasn't in Vegas either, so maybe it's not that strange. I go, who's he there with? He's there with his crew. I go, which crew? The cats from the mini mart, the scumbags from the mini mart where he got the Stree Overlord, and these guys are clearly have been aiding and abetting. I said, snap a picture for me. So the guy, my spy, is like following him around the whole night. He goes, they're online for beer. They're screaming. They seem kind of amped up, kind of animated. It's like, this is not, and on the one hand, I'm getting these texts. I'm sitting there looking. I'm like at the text, and I'm looking up at the video package that they're doing about Johnny Joe, he's back, and I'm like, man. And then somebody is trying to buoy my spirits, and they're like, oh, they're just testing for performance enhancing drugs. They don't care if he's got coke in his system. I go, yeah, and OJ's not black, he's OJ. Come on, okay, I mean, he's not acting like a guy in the thing. You're watching him with his woman and the kid, and and he's training, and don't show him going to the strip clubs at 2 or 3 in the morning. This is pre-excusing. These are not the actions or activities of somebody who's fucking holding it down. I'm sorry. If you were hoping, if that the good Lord gives and the good Lord takes away, if that video package calmed you and that you think that a Johnny Boney Joni is fucking rededicated and refocused, my blowing up text on Saturday should put that shit to rest, because he's not doing, outside of having a driver, as far as I can see, not much has changed, man. You got to I'm going to quote him in this instance. You got to respect the game. And that's not what I feel is happening. But, it's not to say the guy can't go out with his friends, but it's the friends he goes out with that makes a difference.
So you don't think they should put the Amanda Nunes rematch on the – can you imagine? It's like, let's roll the dice.
No, I mean, you could do what you should do is, like, somebody should just book, fantasy MMA league. You should book an all Gicta card. I mean, because you could do it at this point. In every single division, there's like that guy, and guy. And
imagine the action too, like in Vegas, right? Yeah, is this fight actually going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned him earlier, Uncle Creepy, Ian McCall. How many fights has that guy bailed on? How many he's been injured? I mean, okay, how many people have gotten to the post and just not gotten in the game? Lots. Or gotten in the game and then disappointed. I mean, some have even tried to sucker me in with the Jim Miller conspiracy, that Jim Miller was paid to not grapple with Pettis. I don't know that I buy that.
Cookers tactics.
Yeah, exactly. Like Lamont
Sanford.
No, Lamont, the fighter from North Carolina who was paid to not go to the ground with Brian Schwartz. He most assuredly could have beat his ass to buoy Brian Schwartz's burgeoning MMA career, which never went anywhere. But Scott Coker is a man and delivered on the fight. And I think it's Lamont Davis delivered on the 4 fights he promised him. He got him.
Man, where is Justin Gaethje when you need him? Bringing joy.
America turns its lonely eyes to.
Man. Thanks for joining us. Follow us on Twitter, Eugene S. Robinson, Alexi Walda, Kid Nate, Facebook at MMA Punch Holes. Please give us a thumbs up.
Sorry.
Leave comments on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com, YouTube MMA Nation on iTunes. Visit Bloody Elbow. Buy Oxbow's Thin Black Duke, where fine music is sold.
We got a big surprise coming on Thursday, baby.
Uh-oh.
Exclusively through Vice's Noisy.
Oh.
I've said too much.
For past episodes of the show, check out our If I Did playlist on MMANation.com, and be sure to check out all three of us on Amazon.com. We'll be back next week with another installment If I Did, and we don't know what we're going to be talking about yet because the PR mistakes have yet to be made.